Welcome. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in about 5 minutes. Thanks for being here. While we're waiting, if you want to introduce yourself in chat, feel free. We'd love to get to know who's here. I know some of you, not all of you yet. Welcome. If you're just joining us, we'll get started in about 5 minutes. Feel free to introduce yourself in chat. Welcome. If you're just joining us, feel free to introduce yourself in chat. Welcome. If you're just joining us, feel free to introduce yourself in chat. While we wait to start, we'll wait just a couple more minutes. Thanks for being here. Just testing audio. Is everyone able to hear? Great. Thanks, Dawn. Awesome. Welcome, Darcy. Thanks, everyone. You can follow Darcy's lead and introduce yourself in chat if you feel like it. We'd love to hear where you're calling in from, your organization, if you want to share that as well. If you're just joining us, we're going to wait a few more minutes to get started. Great. Welcome, Charlie. Welcome, Dawn. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining, Robin. Welcome, Gracie. Good morning, Lindsay. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Awesome. Thanks, Darcy. If you're just joining, we're just waiting a few more minutes to let folks jump in at their lunch break if you're on the West Coast. And we'll start in just a couple minutes. In the meantime, you can introduce yourself and chat if you wish. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll wait one more minute and get started. Folks are jumping in. Welcome. You can introduce yourself in chat if you wish. We'd love to see where you're calling in from, what organization you're here to represent, if any. See some familiar names and some new names. That's awesome. All right, if you're just joining, welcome. You can introduce yourself in chat and we'll get started in one more minute. Let folks jump on. Welcome, welcome Lily, Micheline, Jenna, Robin, Emmy, Christina, welcome Shebra. Okay, awesome. And just so you know, in chat, you can choose to chat everyone or just hosts and panelists. You get to choose with that little arrow by the blue box. Some of your messages are just going to me, I think, which is totally up to you. Welcome. If you're just joining us, we're going to jump in at 12:02. I see it's time. Thanks so much for being here. It's really an honor and a privilege to have you join us today. This is our first of hopefully many offerings in this space of do-it-yourself strategic planning. So welcome to everyone, and we'll continue to welcome folks as you join. I see folks like from way back in my past, from high school, hi Beth, to folks that I work with now and everybody in between and new folks that I'm yet to meet. So this is amazing. Thanks for being here. So my name is Megan. I am one of the co-founders of Impact Launch and the creator of the do-it-yourself strategic planning process. So we are, as an organization, a social impact firm that has worked with community-based organizations, local government, other organizations to advance leadership and results. Mostly across the Bay Area, but also nationally. And we have all, as practitioners of Impact Launch, worked hands-on really deeply in communities, in community-based organizations like many of yours, and in the nonprofit and local government sector. And we're really passionate about helping organizations achieve their mission. We feel like when you succeed, we all succeed, and we're all in this together. So I'm just really excited that you are here today, that you decided to take this hour, and really look forward to diving in. So thanks, everyone. And if you're just joining, feel free to introduce yourself in chat to everyone and let us know where you're calling in from and what sector or issue area or organization you're representing today. That would be helpful. So we're going to tackle today how you and your organization can do meaningful, actionable strategic planning that can really help guide your organization to success, and really look at the stability of your organization, especially in such a dynamic time that we're in, through a step-by-step process. So without a big all-consuming strategic planning process, how can we do quality strategic planning, even if you've tried strategic planning in the past? So speaking of, you can put in chat or use your raised hand feature if you can find it. How many folks have tried strategic planning in the past and were maybe overwhelmed by it, unimpressed, didn't finish it, or it just sat on a shelf? Anybody? Anybody? Tried strategic planning, didn't work, too overwhelming, too expensive, too time consuming, whatever it might be. Totally understand that experience. Thanks. Yeah. So I feel you. We've all been there, done that too. And that is why we're here. So today we're going to talk through how you can do quality strategic planning without feeling that sense of wasting time, wasting resources, the critical capacity that you need every day to do the such important work that you do. So I am willing to bet, and I know some of you, but not all of you, but I'm willing to bet that you've come here today because you care about your organization deeply and the mission and vision for impact that you want to have in your community and the people that you serve, that you want your organization to succeed. That's what this is all about. That you want to be able to contribute more results. Maybe you're not seeing the results yet that you want to see. And you really want to be sustainable and you want to be focused, especially in these times. Maybe you're here because you want to stop spinning your wheels, and you really want to have a clear, aligned path forward to help guide decision-making, resource allocation in these complex times. Having that clarity and that focus is everything, in our experience. And maybe, as we just explored, traditional strategic planning has been too overwhelming, or it's just not been that successful. It's bogged you down, or it's expensive. You just haven't had time. So that is why we're here too. We've been there, and we wanted to create an accessible roadmap for doing planning differently to support you. So let's talk planning. Greater impact, increased focus, smarter use of resources. Those have been the drivers of so many of the organizations that we've worked with to do strategic planning, wanting to accomplish your mission without a long, drawn out or complex process and within the resources that you have now, right? A plan can help us grow resources, but to do the plan, we need to leverage the resources that we have now. So we're here to say that you don't necessarily need to engage in a long, painful, complex, resource-intensive planning process to get all the benefits of a quality strategic plan. So you are in the right place. You're in the right place if you've tried strategic planning in the past and maybe it didn't produce the results that you were hoping for, or you've started a planning process but got overwhelmed and stopped, or you've been wondering if and how your organization can do strategic planning. Even with limited capacity and resources, that's literally why we created this. And then maybe you're just curious about strategic planning and how it can help your organization and whatever it's facing right now. So again, you are in the right place if any of these and probably more apply to you. And we get it. That's why we're here too. You were in the right conversation. And we have experienced with you and with other small and medium community-based organizations, service providers, local government, or teams, initiatives, coalitions that are working towards results. We've been there, we've done that, we're here. And that is why we created this, because we want you to have the tools for success. Again, our success, your success is tied with the results we all want and are deeply passionate about in the communities that you serve. So this is also about, it's not about where your organization is in its development, whether you're just starting an organization or you've been around for 100 years, no matter what size your organization is, you still have come to the right place. This is about helping you do strategic planning, starting where you're standing and doing it differently step by step. Another key component that we'll explore a lot in this hour together is tailoring that plan to your organization, really to the unique needs, the capacities, the results that you need in this moment, to your size, all of those things. We need it to be tailored so that you can generate the results that you want to see. And again, if you're an organization, if you're a program, if you're an initiative, that's all relevant. How do we create a plan that doesn't sit on a shelf, that really meets your needs? So we're going to talk about all of that, how you can have a bigger impact with a plan, focus resources, create alignment across our team, no matter how big or small. Imagine everyone moving in the same direction, clear about their role, clear about their contribution, and therefore inspired and motivated by their contribution, whether they're your admin assistant or volunteer board member that's your CFO and everything else in between, or any other role in your organization. Having clarity about their contribution is huge. You don't need to figure this all out on your own. Please do not go and reinvent the wheel. Who has time for that? We've worked with many dozens of clients on strategic planning, and we are here to share what we've learned. We've gleaned sort of the best of the best for our community-based organizations in a doable step-by-step process. So today's goals: help you get clear on why you need a strategic plan and what kind of plan do you need. They are not all the same. So you can confidently move forward with your planning process. And then we'll show you what to focus on, or at least some idea of where you can tailor your plan and really focus it in so that you have a comprehensive plan, but it's not focused on things that you don't necessarily need. And it really can help create that focus and alignment. And then we'll explore some of the pitfalls of planning processes and sort of how to avoid them throughout this conversation as well. And I just want to share this conversation. I started creating this 2 years ago, and now it's more relevant than ever. I was just on a call with renowned fundraising expert Kay Sprinkle Grace. Some of you were on that call with us yesterday, and she wisely said it is not necessarily the time to diversify, it's the time to solidify. And so how do we show funders, donors, partners, our community that we are strong, we're leaning in, we're in it, that we can deliver results, and that we're solid, and that we can be counted on in this time? For that, we need a plan. So how do we solidify during this tumultuous time with a quality strategic plan? So next piece, keys to successful planning. So one of the biggest problems with strategic planning is how most people think about it and approach it. So many of us believe that strategic planning needs to take a lot of time, needs to take a lot of resources, needs to be complex. And we've learned that probably from seeing corporate strategic planning process or large nonprofit organizations that can undertake large complex processes, which are sometimes necessary, but for our community-based organizations and smaller orgs, not always necessary. So many of us believe that strategic planning needs to take a lot of time, needs to be complex to get those results, but all organizations and teams can benefit greatly from a solid plan, and we're here to show you how. Another belief is that planning needs to focus on all of the things rather than on the right things for your organization. Let me say that again. Our plans do not need to focus on all of the things to be effective. They need to focus on the right things. So how do we create a plan that doesn't sit on a shelf? It's relevant. It's relevant to right now. It's relevant to what we foresee in the next few years, not the next 10 years, please. Please, no 10-year strategic plans. Focus on 3, maybe 5 years. And it'll sit on a shelf or we just never even get started on it because it's intimidating, or we have this assumption or narrative that it has to be complex or time consuming or resource intensive. Another common pitfall is that sometimes we feel like the plan needs to be so lofty and visionary with sort of a big wow factor, that it's so lofty it sits on a shelf. So it's either not relevant enough, or it's so lofty that it doesn't actually translate to the practical day-to-day next steps that we need to take. And there is a good sweet spot in there of being visionary, but also practical. So we really need a plan that's both visionary in what we want to accomplish, but practical in how we get there. So we want our plan to be grounded in reality. It needs to be visionary and practical, and it needs to take into account the resources and capacities that we have now and what we want to grow toward, right? So as I've been saying lately, the wow factor, the wow can be in the how. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the what. And so how do we explore that space of visionary yet practical? So these keys are central and the heart of your planning process. So getting clear on the purpose of your strategic plan. How will it serve you and why now? You might be clear on that, and we'll talk more about this, but others around you might not be. Your board members may not be, donors and funders might not be clear on why now, staff might not be clear on why you want them to spend time on this. So getting clear on the why is going to be key. Focusing your plan by sifting through all the things you don't need to focus on and really zeroing in on the ones that you do, diving into those areas, and spending time on the right things rather than all the things is a key factor. And then tailoring the process to meet your unique needs and circumstances. Not all plans are a one size fits all. And so that's what this is about. How do we really tailor it to your needs? And then please simplify the process so your team can participate by breaking it down step by step so it's inclusive, accessible, doable, so everyone can participate. So what I like to say is the best way to pet an elephant is to start with its trunk or its ear or its tail, but we're not going to try to pet the whole thing at once. So that's what this is about. It's about breaking these down step by step. So we're starting with one piece that's most important and building from there. Welcome if you're just joining. I see some folks joining. Feel free to introduce yourself in chat if you feel like it, and welcome. So we are going to move quickly today and get the most out of our time together. I just want to do a little teaser. I know many of you have expressed the desire to create a plan with step-by-step guidance from beginning to end, and it's often too resource intensive. So that is why we created not just this webinar, but also another opportunity very affordably to get even more support and through a step-by-step online course that we've created. Self-paced, can do it at your own time, but 17 tools and templates to literally walk through every single aspect of a strategic plan and end with one that uses a template that you just fill in. So everything from which stakeholders you might want to talk to, questions you can ask in those interviews, you name it, it is in this set of tools. It has literally everything you need for your team to create a plan. So if you're interested and curious, this is where you would find more information about that. And at the very end of this call, I'll talk more about that opportunity if it's something that you would be interested in. Okay, so I mentioned needing to start with the why of our strategic plan. It's really the heart of our planning process. It's getting clear on the reasons for creating or updating, refreshing a strategic plan that can benefit our organization. Why might be really obvious to us, right? Why would we be here if we didn't understand why starting a strategic planning process could be really important for our organization? So even if the why is clear to us, what I'm here to say is make it explicit to others. Sometimes the why is so internalized that we're not communicating it and making it really explicit. And so that opportunity to enroll board members and staff and donors and whoever else might be involved in the planning process gets lost. So even if the why is clear to us as individual leaders, we want to make sure that it's clear to our team. We want to make sure that we are really articulating a clear why to others to help them enroll them in the process. So that is step one. And in turn, you're going to benefit greatly from the buy-in that generates, because planning generally can't be done in a vacuum. We don't recommend it. We don't recommend one person sitting at the top of the organization saying, here's what we're going to do for the next 3 years, as easy as that sounds. But there are great tools for collaborating on planning that doesn't have to make it complex, but makes it stronger, more collaborative, more inclusive, so that everyone's bought into the results of the plan and therefore bought into implementing the plan. So greater buy-in into the planning process. That means any tasks or elements of the plan that you ask them to participate in, they'll really understand the why and have maybe even co-created the statement about the why. So we've got a few questions, and yes, I will share these slides, so you don't have to grab it all right now. But we do have a set of questions that can really help generate your sort of why statement. So one is identify if there is a specific challenge or opportunity that's facing your organization that's led you to the planning process. So what is it? What is that key question you or your organization's asking right now that could help guide why you need a plan? What are the key questions that you need to answer through the strategic plan? And then we love working backwards from results. That is our thing. So working backwards, what does success look like for the strategic plan and the planning process? What are you trying to get out of it? What are you communicating to others about what success looks like? Are you needing clarity on a fundraising and development plan? Are you needing clarity on your program design? Are you needing clarity on organizational culture? We'll talk about all of that. Those are all aspects that we could look at. But what does success look like for that strategic plan? Maybe it's alignment and having everyone know their contribution and building morale. That's going to be those answers will be unique to you, but they're really important questions to ask at the beginning of the planning process. Okay, so what is the return on investment for this process, right? So this isn't just about us thinking it's a good idea. We often need to bring along others, board members and other staff and folks that are going to engage with us in this planning process. So what will we get out of the strategic plan that will make our investment of time and resources worthwhile? Because no matter what, it's going to take some time, right? And we'll talk about how much time it can save to have a plan, but it'll take some upfront investment of time. So how will a plan benefit our clients and those that we serve? So really looking at that big picture of what's at stake if we don't plan and what's possible if we do. How will a strategic plan help enhance the results that we could generate? So how is it going to help us actually meet our mission and generate what we put out that we want to generate? How will the planning process help build our organization's capacity, morale, impact? How will a strategic plan help you communicate more strategically, right? The plan isn't necessarily just for internal roadmap and communication. It's an incredible tool to communicate where you're heading with donors. Sometimes funders ask to upload your strategic plan and a grant application. You might be talking to new partners that you might want to collaborate with, and it's really helpful to be able to succinctly share where you're headed as an organization. So it's just a snapshot, much more in the full toolkit, but this is a great starting place for really getting clear on the purpose of your plan. All right, so let's take a couple of minutes. I would love to hear in chat as we continue on here, what just top of mind and why you came here today. What are some of the reasons you think you want a strategic plan right now, or just are curious about creating one? So please join us in chat and let us know why a plan and why now top of mind for your organization or program or initiative. What is it that's driving you to want to find out more about planning right now? Right, put that in chat. And we'll come back to it and see what some of your answers are. All right, an operating plan not driven by strategy is useless. Yes, great. So we can have all the best laid policy and practice, but if we don't know what it's aiming for or the larger context for what it's driving toward, it's not going to help, right? And then if we have strategy without operations the other way, Mike, it's the same. So we need that full picture. Great. We had a change in leadership. Yeah, that's a great time to update a plan and really make sure that you're clear on where you're heading with the new leadership in place, making sure that what we're doing is still needed and effective and wanted. Yeah, with so much changing in our landscape, we need to stay relevant, responsive to our communities. So is what we're doing effective is a great pause and a great way to enter a strategic plan. Some folks have a really old one. Yeah, I'm working with an organization right now that has a 10-year-old plan and they haven't looked at it in 9 years, including their mission and vision. So now's the time to update it. Would like to learn more about how to generate a strategic plan effectively. We're finishing a 5-year plan this year, and we want to include stakeholders to raise the bar. Great. Future sustainability. Leadership changes again, transitioning from volunteer to paid staff. Yeah, so smaller organizations who are still in that transition period, that's a really important time to have a plan in place, a roadmap, so it doesn't become scattered and you really know where to put those precious resources as you're going from volunteer to paid. A lot of updates in here, wanting to make sure things are actionable and strategic. Um, a lot of focus on fundraising, growth. Yeah, awesome. Okay, wonderful. Keep coming if you want to add thoughts in there. We definitely welcome hearing more from you. Okay, so what's next in this process? That's what we just did. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so I have worked with so many organizations just like yours, and just really reflective of what you just put in chat. So thank you for that. And so you are not alone, and those are very common reasons for needing a plan. I've worked with so many who simply want their organization to succeed, whether it's a big change in leadership or you're shifting from volunteer to paid staff, or, there's a lot of different reasons, growth, sustainability, wanting to remain responsive. So what this is about to me is moving from just surviving to thriving. It's about a plan that can really help us thrive with focus and alignment and responsiveness and relevance. So since we first started offering strategic planning to our clients, we have completed dozens of plans, and we've really learned what works and what does not the hard way. And we want to pass that on to you. We've seen the results of approaching planning differently. We've seen clients increase programmatic impact, number of people served, increase their funding. They've been able to strategically reallocate resources. And then underlying all of that, and really the foundation of all of that, is renewal of energy. And who doesn't need that right now? Renewal of energy and motivation and inspiration and engagement of board and staff. And volunteers and everyone involved in your organization. So ultimately, all of those ingredients add up to increasing overall impact. So really quickly, and more to come in terms of practical next steps for your plan, but we have worked with all of these organizations and more. And we ourselves have worked in nonprofits, like I mentioned, hands-on for decades before founding Impact Launch. So we get it. We've been there. And we've had the privilege of talking to a lot of nonprofits just like yourselves who are working tirelessly and are constantly spinning wheels around fundraising, board engagement, staffing, program design, all the things, operations, space, all the stuff that comes up. And a common theme is feeling both limited and stuck. And then that leads to burnout. And none of us can afford that ourselves as individuals, and then those that we work with. So strategic planning is one really strong ingredient that can combat burnout and low morale. And it's not that what any of these organizations are doing is wrong. It's just that it's not as focused and strategic as it could be. So all the effort and resources and time and capacity they're putting into their work becomes scattered, therefore less effective. So I don't have time to plan. We're too busy serving clients that we have. We can't focus on the bigger picture or what's next. All common. I was the ED, I became the ED of a regional initiative to address poverty that covered 9 unique Bay Area counties. When I first came on board, my head was spinning. 9 different counties, so many directions we could go in. I was overwhelmed by the scope of what we were trying to tackle, which was poverty. It was a giant problem with a lot of nuances and possible entry points. We had a board at the time where half of them didn't show up, weren't communicating with us. Funders and donors weren't sure what the purpose of us was. It sounded good, but what were we actually doing? They really just weren't clear in the work, and so they were disengaged. Partners who were part of those 9 counties weren't sure what the value add was in participating. So I came in at a time that was a real turning point, or not. We had an option, but I knew that we had to get really clear and specific and focused to be able to be aligned internally and externally and really gain momentum. So looking at the whole picture was so overwhelming that I started to pet an elephant. I started with the trunk. So we started to look at how can we quickly generate a clear path forward to align our partners, boards, and funders and gain some momentum. So we had to sift through all that potential areas of planning, and we had to determine sort of where the most effective strategic specific areas of focus should be. And we didn't have to do it all. So we had to zero in and get strategic about where should we focus, where should we begin, where should we build momentum. So I developed a lot of the approach that I'm sharing with you today in that time, hands-on. And through our planning process and following these steps, we were able to identify specific priority areas that were really relevant at the time to the members of the organization and the funders and what they saw as important. We developed clear communicational goals and strategies to funders and board members. And that really helped us then build the infrastructure that we needed to implement that. And we grew our coalition to over 200 members in a couple of years because of that clarity, because people saw where they could plug in, how they could contribute. So we could only do this quickly and efficiently by using a really focused planning process. We couldn't take a year at that time to do a big full-blown process. We needed to get specific and clear quickly. So that experience changed everything for me. I saw my partners and other organizations still struggling. And that's when I started to realize I really wanted to help create more accessible pathways for community-based organizations to be able to do their work more effectively. And I saw the impact that that quality strategic plan brought us, from flailing to building sustainability and momentum really quickly. And I personally benefited as a leader, moving from stress and fear and overwhelm and almost burnout to thriving and being able to be creative and nimble within the roadmap that we created. So what I want you to take away from all of that is it's doable. You can create a strategic plan. I'm going to walk you through the next step, which is how do we focus? Where do we begin? How do we go from this many directions that we could go in trying to do it all to a really focused plan? So I'm here to preach that everybody can create a strategic plan. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. So if you can commit, and I invite you to ask yourself, if I can commit to walking through some tools and having some conversations, some meaningful conversations with staff and board over the next few months, you can create a strategic plan. That's what it takes. So let's take a look at how to tailor the process. So for example, we worked with a community-based nonprofit focused on providing services to prevent child abuse. And they had a new ED, never had done strategic planning before, was really nervous about how to move it forward, pretty intimidated. And they didn't have funds at the time to hire a consultant, put out an RFP, do a big process. But she knew without a plan, the organization was going to remain in status quo. So this is that leadership change moment, right, that some of you mentioned. And they really needed focused growth and to look at sustainability. So she worked with these tools step by step and was able to complete a strategic plan on her own that the board then approved, and now they're implementing it. And so they really zeroed in on these 4 areas. And we've seen this over and over again. Are there more areas? Yes. Are there a lot of things included in these areas? Yes. But if you want to really zero in and focus, you can take a look at these 4 areas. And we have a simple assessment tool that you can use to help determine where in these 4 areas to focus. And it gets really specific into the nitty-gritty ingredients under these areas. So broadly, you can take a look at this and say, if we have a mission and vision already in place, we don't necessarily need to review that if it's been reviewed in the last couple of years. We don't necessarily need to look at programs and service growth if what we really need to focus is finance and resource development, or maybe those are related, so you look at both. So this process was really going to help to zero in on what are the key components that might be missing or that need attention that you can zero in on, and letting the other things that are running on their own, they're doing great. Why fix what's not broken? And not spending too much time on those. So operations, organizational or team culture. Remember, culture eats policy for breakfast. We have to, and often don't, look at that as a key aspect, an ingredient for our organizations. And then programs and services is often a key component, and of course, finance and resource development. So these are interdependent key elements for any organization's success. And within each of those core areas, we recommend really looking at the current reality. So operations, what's the current reality? Is what we have in place clear, consistent, in alignment with current priorities and values? Is it producing the outcomes that we think it should be? Is there a written policy or practice, or how is it being communicated? So these are some of the key questions we can ask ourselves in each area. Our strengths, what's working well or producing the desired outcomes, so that we can leverage those and learn from them. It's not just about what's not working. It's not just about the gaps. We really need to learn and can learn so much from acknowledging and seeing what's working well, so that we can continue doing more of that. But then, of course, gaps, the what's missing. And I want to point out here that when we say gaps rather than weaknesses or threats, it's strengths-based. It means something's missing and we can put it in place. It's very empowering rather than a blame shame space. So where are there gaps in how something's working in each of these areas, and where do we need to focus? And then opportunities, where are there opportunities that could help us fill that gap or help us do things differently? And then other considerations, which means there's going to be dynamics that are specific to your unique context and the communities that you're serving that we need to consider. And that's kind of the landscape space. What's happening in the policy landscape? What's happening in our community that we need to consider that might impact us? So these are some core conversation starters to have with staff and board at the beginning of your process for each of these areas, to be able to sort of suss out where to focus your plan. Right. And again, I will share these slides, so no need to be writing furiously, so that you can take this forward in your planning process. So doing this assessment ahead of planning will really have a huge impact on what you focus on in your planning process. And again, part of this making it right-sized for your organization is zeroing in. So you're not trying to do it all, you're trying to do the right things. So you'll have a really clear idea of what's in place, what's missing, and what you want to dive into. Another thing I hear often is that planning's not for us. Like, it's expensive, time consuming, yes, complicated, but often it's that one size fits all approach that's creating that stress and tension. And especially, as many of you noted, if a plan just sits on a shelf, what's the point? So I've heard from countless organizations that they're really looking to do things differently. They're really looking to have a plan that can be utilized, can be operational, and is meaningful and visionary. So using that same example of the nonprofit that was working to address child abuse in this community, they came to us knowing that there were limited resources and really wanting to understand where they needed to zero in. And they used this screen, these questions, to have a conversation with their board and staff and really be able to tailor their plan. And we do, as Impact Launch, full-fledged planning processes. We do large organizations, small organizations, full-fledged consultant comes in, we carry it, we really shepherd the process. But we're here to say that we also want those of you who don't have those resources, who don't have access to that kind of consultancy coming in, we want you to have the power of planning in your hands as well. That's why we're so passionate about this do-it-yourself planning process. Okay, so one way that we can simplify and tailor is to take it step by step. So we've got this roadmap, and I've talked about some of the elements here, but the first is get clear on the purpose of your plan. And then the next step, and we think often about strategic planning as a funnel. So we want to start at the widest part of the funnel, which is the biggest vision and purpose of the plan. And then our mission and vision is our organization, which should be our guiding light, right? That is what's going to guide what we do and why we do it. And so that mission and vision, reviewing it, refreshing it, creating one, whatever it is, we've got the tools to help. But just landing there, at the very least, grounding in that biggest vision and mission statement so that you can then draw on that to get to the details of the next steps. And at the end of the funnel, at the end of the planning process, you get into the nitty-gritty of who's doing what by when. But we want to start with the big picture first so that we're working backwards from that end goal. So getting clear on our purpose of our plan, reviewing, grounding in, refreshing, whatever it might be, our mission and vision, and then generating buy-in for the planning process, using both of those elements to then generate buy-in. The purpose of the plan, why we exist, remember this if you haven't reviewed it lately, and getting folks excited about the planning process is key. Then we start to collect information to inform the planning process. So doing that assessment of where are we, what are our gaps, where are our strengths, gathering that information. Then what I'm going to talk about next is determining goals. And as we go down in that funnel, we'll start to get big picture goals. And then from there, what are the measurable objectives, the strategies, and the who's doing what by when as we go down that funnel into more and more specifics, so that you land with strategies and tactics, things that you need to do in quarter one, year one, whatever it might be for your organization that's going to serve you, tied to that bigger picture so that it's generating results. It's not scattered, but it's very strategic. Okay. Moving along. So one of the things I hear way too often, that QR code's there because if you're thinking you want even more of this and it's interesting to you and you're finding it helpful, there's so much more to access. So head over there now. But one thing I hear so often is there's not enough time. It's too time consuming. Let's keep it real. That's real. There's only so much time in a day in some ways, right? And we have so many fires to put out, especially right now. There's just so much to keep up with and so many moving parts. So that is a reality and things need our daily attention. But what I'm here to say is strategic planning is the one thing organizations often hobble along without. And it's the one thing they really need. We worked with a food bank, for example, that had consistently put off strategic planning. They were so consumed by their day-to-day work. Food banks are a busy place if you've ever worked in one and visited one. And we can see that they're putting out food, they're creating pop-up pantries, they're responding to community needs. Who has time to do the big picture planning? They were spending a lot of time addressing urgent needs, putting in place programs in crisis situations like responding to COVID, for example, and just doing what they needed to get the services out. But they started to realize, especially coming out of COVID, that we needed more of a response than a reaction, that in those time squeezed, constrained spaces, there were actually the decision making that was happening because there wasn't a roadmap to guide it was creating unforeseen ripple effects, unforeseen unintended consequences, because they were reacting. They were creating programs, but not necessarily with community voice or guided by community needs, etc. So in the end, they were actually wasting a lot of time and resources and had to step back from some of what they had put in place during that time. So the reality is spending some time up front, having a roadmap that can guide not just when everything's going well, but even more importantly, when things are chaos. Having that focused roadmap can be a huge gift to you, your staff, your board. And of course, things change along the way in that roadmap, especially if it's a 3 or 5 year strategic plan. But if done right, your goals, which we're about to talk about creating, will help guide you and you can change the strategies as necessary. We should be checking in quarterly, at the very least, on how we're doing against our plan to see if it's making the progress we thought we would, if we need to shift strategy. But those guiding North Star goals and what we discover in the sort of information collecting process is really going to help guide, not just in good times, but in the tough, chaotic times as well. So let's get to the goals. So setting North Star goals is a huge motivator for staff and board. We need them, but I just want to give the other reasons why we need them beyond the obvious. Having these as a guiding star can help cut through the noise, cut through the distractions, keep folks focused, and again, have them know what their role is and what their unique contribution is to those goals in the organization, no matter where folks sit. So North Star goals are really the heart of the plan. And these should be identified before we get into the weeds, before we get into the measurable objectives, the timeline, the who's doing what. It can be so tempting. I see this time and time and time again, almost every time, that we skip ahead to strategy. We get into the weeds of the how without the clarity of the what first. But what should then drive the how? Both are important. Both are totally necessary ingredients. But again, strategic planning is like a funnel. So we want to make sure that we're starting with that biggest picture, mission, vision, and then funneling down to guiding North Star goals and then getting those specific outcomes and strategies in place. So a few questions to ask yourself when starting to brainstorm some North Star goals. What is true or changing about our landscape right now that we should consider in terms of our services, clients, funders? So what is true about what's changing? What are our assets and strengths to build on and the gaps that we need to address? So notice you're going to take the inquiry that you did previously and then build on that information for generating your North Star goals. So each step builds on the next. And then what needs to be true with our organization and the work that we do in the community to realize our mission and vision? And that's such a key question. Based on what we know, based on the landscape, based on our strengths and gaps, what needs to be true for our organization and the work we do to realize our mission and vision? And then what are the 2 to 3 things that are fundamental to the future success of our organization as a whole? These questions will generate so much intelligence from and wisdom from your group to land on some North Star goals. And here are some examples. As I go through these, I'm going to invite everyone who's on to start adding in some examples of North Star goals that you're thinking of for your organization. We're not looking for perfection here, just brainstorming. What are you seeing as potential North Star goals that your organization might want to focus on? And you can get real-time feedback right here, right now. So some examples, start putting those in chat. Some examples of North Star goals, I took these from all different clients that we work with. So they're from different sectors and focus areas, as you'll see. But one example would be fostering community-led solutions and leadership. So if we know that the landscape is requiring us to really be community-led and community-driven, then we need to set that as our North Star goal, and then we will have outcomes and strategies underneath that as to how we foster those community-led solutions. But we know that that's one thing that's going to drive us over the next few years. Cultivate safe, inclusive, and sustainable neighborhoods was another one. So if that's what's driving us over the next few years, then we can work backwards from that and look at our resources, our funding, our capacity, the programs, how they might need to shift, et cetera, so that we can get to those outcomes and strategies underneath that goal. Advance equity through client-centered services was another goal. This was specifically for our public health department. So how do we center our clients and advance equity through client-centered services? So the how came after this, but they really wanted to align staff and all of the departments under the what. Protect and enforce the legal rights of vulnerable populations, key to a lot of organizations that we're working with right now that are working with vulnerable populations. So if we know that's our North Star, then we can build in the how. Empowering individuals through legal education and advocacy, centering employee well-being, right? So a lot of these are external. Centering employee well-being is an internal North Star goal, which is also important to look at. What do we need to do within our own culture and operations and policies and procedures to be the most effective that we can be? I'm seeing some in chat. And then let's see. Okay, so working backwards in chat, shifts in leadership. Let's see, needs of the communities have changed. Okay, I see a question from Melandra. When do you recommend including staff in strategic planning? I recommend including them early and often. Often we do a couple of things at the very least to include staff. One would be to make sure that we're either doing a focus group or an all staff meeting or interviews with staff to ask them those questions on that previous slide of what are our strengths, what are our gaps, what's working, especially in the areas where they have influence over, like program design. And then we often do a retreat that includes staff and board so that we get, one, we're breaking down the silos throughout that process, and that we're including staff to be able to provide meaningful input. And sometimes we have a committee that might meet with the executive director throughout the planning process, and that's often also inclusive of at least a few representative staff voices and board. Thanks for that question. Okay, yeah, great. Seeing some great great goals in here. Empower underserved women with holistic health services and programming. Great. Yeah. And then you can work backwards from there to generate the strategies that you would do to get there. What needs to maybe shift in our program design? What do we might need to add, et cetera, et cetera. Creating pathways through policy and services that allow all members of our community to age in their setting of choice. Great. That's a big one. You might want to break that down into a couple of them. And make sure that you're looking at both policy and services when you get into strategy, right? Because those are going to be probably different strategies to get to each of those components. Develop strategies and solutions that increase opportunity for all. Beautiful. And then you would want to get specific as to all who in the community you serve, in a specific geography or specific population, because that's so general, it might be hard to get specific in your strategy. And again, we want to be visionary, but we want to connect it to really practical on the ground action. So I would recommend getting even more specific within that. Strategies and solutions that increase opportunity for whom, and opportunity for what? Is it economic opportunity, employment opportunity? So as getting even more specific in our visionary goals can help us be more strategic and focused. Thank you for sharing those. All right, so a couple of myths and a couple of facts. So I hear a lot, as I've said, that maybe we're thinking I need to have all kinds of things figured out before I can do strategic planning. And the fact is, once we start strategic planning, we figure a lot of things out. So getting started on the planning is how you'll land on what you need to figure out and where to focus. So I encourage you to not let analysis paralysis and needing to collect information get in the way of starting your planning process, but have it be a part of your planning process. And then it's too expensive or complicated. The plan should be tailored and right-sized for you. We don't need to follow complex models of planning to get great results. We don't need multiple Gantt charts and Excel spreadsheets with multiple tabs to have a really successful, powerful plan. And we don't have time and capacity. We talked about that. And I just want to reiterate that planning actually saves us a lot of time in the long run by helping us focus our time and resources. And so that's a critical component to remember if it's an internal dialogue you're having, or if it's sort of a debate you're having with a board member who's trying to decide whether it's worthwhile or not. Keep in mind, planning actually saves us a lot of time in the long run with a small amount of time investment upfront. All right. So imagine for a moment of Zen. Imagine for a moment that all of the wheels in your organization are moving in the same direction, helping to serve your immediate and long-term needs, and that you're really having a big impact because of it. Imagine everyone's clear on their role and contribution in meeting their goals. Everyone from your CFO or your volunteer board member CFO or your admin assistant or your direct service provider staff, whatever it might be, everyone's clear on why they're there and they're motivated by the plan to get there. That clarity and time and focus that you can get from having a clear plan helps you serve your mission and organization, and you have succinct, measurable goals that you can continue to work towards and you continue to check in on, and you have ways to track them. So imagine you have that roadmap and that it's exactly what you need. I have worked with so many organizations that have been able to make that a reality through really quality planning. And we're here to invite you to do the same. So I want to introduce you now in our last few minutes to, if you want more tips, tools, and tricks and step-by-step guidance, our course. So this is, I'm just going to, and if you're even not interested in the course, you're going to get more tidbits in the next few minutes. So stay tuned, because even just going through the modules that are included here will give you a sense of how the full planning process could work for you, whether you decide to do it with us or not. So if you're going to try it on your own, stick around. But everything we offer in this course is tested and tried on the ground. And I'll tell you what's included. We've got 8 modules that are online, self-paced, full access to them for your whole lifetime of when you need access to them. And then there's 17 tools and exercises throughout those 8 modules that literally step by step take you through each step of the planning process. So you'll do the module with you and your team if you want, or just you, or a board member and you, whoever it might be. You take those tools to a meeting, you do them, you come back for the next module. So literally by the end, you have a completed plan. And a few additional components of this that's really cool, I think, is that you'll also have access to a private online community where you can ask a group like this questions and bounce ideas off of each other. And we'll be monitoring that as well. So we'll be able to provide you feedback there as well. There's a lot of bonuses included as well. So just to give you a sense, you'll get the full pre-course assessment, organizational assessment, and the roadmap that really breaks down the process and helps you talk to your staff or your board members about the process. And it's all tailored. So it gives you worksheets and it shows you how you can tailor them to your unique needs. And then we continue in the process by going even deeper into that mission and vision statement, whether you need to refresh it, just revisit it, or create a new one. There's step-by-step. If anybody remembers Mad Libs, it's essentially asking questions and then you plug and play and you have a mission vision. It takes all the work out of what could be a very long, tedious process if anyone's undergone that before. And then the plan purpose statement tool in even more depth. Then you'll get step-by-step how to create buy-in for the planning process, an actual stakeholder engagement checklist. Here's all the folks you could talk to. Who do you want to talk to? Here's questions you can ask them, and even an agenda for your kickoff meeting. So we're literally hand-holding as much as possible, step by step, so that you have everything you need to create your plan. Then we get to that assessment of understanding your current reality and going even deeper with a lot of examples into what you need. And each module has worksheets, templates, written instruction, but also a video by me. So I walk you through step by step and provide a lot of examples from our experience of what this all could look like. Then we walk you step by step through collecting the essential information you need to inform your plan. So what's needed, what might not be needed, you do that assessment, there's a worksheet. We even share how to source some of the information. You may not know where some of that information lies, but we can help you understand where to source the information that you need to inform your plan. And again, the stakeholder interview template. So getting information from folks that you work with, partners in the community, etc. You determine what scope of engagement you want to do, and then this gives you a step-by-step plug and play instruction on how to do that. Then we dive even further into that North Star goal piece, really zeroing in on specifics for your organization, a worksheet that you can use in the meeting for the conversation that you're going to have to brainstorm those examples. So again, worksheets you can use with your team to take it step by step. Then we work on defining those outcomes. So we didn't talk as much about that today, but you'll get that in the course. You'll get how to sort of translate and go from North Star goals to how you can measure those as key outcomes. We call them memos, measurable, equitable, meaningful outcomes that will serve as milestones that you can track progress against those North Star goals. So you'll get a whole lowdown and examples on what that means, and then a worksheet to help you generate your own. And then putting it all together. So you'll get a final template for your plan. You'll be guided to generate strategies that will help you reach those outcomes and goals, and guidance on how to not only put your plan together, but implement it. Okay, so these are the options. I can tell you right now that most of our strategic planning processes start at $20,000 and go all way on up from there. So you can see this is a giant deal. This is a really good value. And just to point out that the one on the left is the entry level, kind of just do it on your own. You get all of those tools for your lifetime. You can download them for this organization and one you work with in the future. And then the second one is you also get all that plus a private review of your plan with feedback. And then the VIP, which I really recommend, is a huge value, is all of that plus 2 private one-on-one with your team or just you consultation calls to really dive into your plan deeply and get advice and feedback and recommendations. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, where you get all of the different tools and templates plus a little bit of extra support if you get stuck or have questions about the plan. So I want to honor and respect your time. I can stay on for a few minutes. If anybody has questions that you want to ask, please feel free to put them in chat. And I just want to thank you all for being here. Hopefully this was a mix of both information, things you can take with you, implement right away, and something to think about in terms of joining us in this course and accessing all of the other tools and information. So let's see. Debbie, do you have similar menu for hands-on strategic planning packages? Definitely reach out. We tailor our hands-on strategic planning to each organization, so we could talk through what that's looked like and what you need. So let's definitely, yeah, David, let's reconnect soon. Thanks, everyone. And yes, we do one-on-one individual consults. So definitely reach out to us and let us know what you're looking for. Check out that course. It's definitely a great value. And then you can always call us in for extra support. Thanks, everyone. Keep those questions coming, but if you have to leave, totally understand. And thanks so much for joining us. We'll be following up with the slides soon. Thanks, Robin. Emails and chat. Great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take good care. So great to see you. Thanks, Beth. And I hope to be in touch with each of you again very soon. Thank you all for the work that you do in the communities that you serve. Thanks, everyone. Take care.